I was elbow deep in a busted irrigation valve, covered in mud and rust, when my phone started buzzing in my back pocket. I almost didn't answer, figured it was another supplier delay, but something made me grab it. "Hey, we're moving fast on expansion," said my regional manager, Larry. "You want to lead the Idaho team? Base pay $200,000. Housing's included. Full benefits. Offers good if you can move by the end of the month." I froze. 200 grand. In writing. Finally. 4 years I'd been chasing scraps, contract work, low-level site roles, part-time consulting. Always good enough to do the work, never good enough to lead. This was everything I'd been working toward. I muttered a quick, "I'm in," and hung up. Inside, my wife was lounging on the patio in her white spa robe, sipping a matcha latte with one leg up like she was posing for a catalog. Her phone was glued to her hand, thumb scrolling nonstop. "I got the job," I said, still catching my breath. "Lead agronomist. Idaho. 200 base. Full package. Housing included." She didn't even look up. "Idaho? Are you serious?" She laughed once, loud and sharp. "I'm not moving to the middle of nowhere so you can play farmer." Play farmer. That one hit clean. I walked past her, grabbed the duffel from the hall closet, and started tossing clothes in: jeans, work boots, flannel, toiletries. Nothing fancy, just what I needed. "What the hell are you doing?" she asked, finally putting the phone down. "I'm taking the job," I said, zipping the bag. "You don't have to come." She stood up like I'd slapped her. "Then I want a divorce." I looked her dead in the eye. "Fair enough." I walked out to the truck, threw the bag in the back, and didn't look over my shoulder once. She followed me out to the truck barefoot, still in that robe. I was halfway into the driver's seat when she barked, "You're seriously just leaving?" I didn't even slam the door. Just leaned over, grabbed the keys off the dash, and said, "I'm taking the job. Permanently." She crossed her arms tight and hissed through her teeth. "So that's it? You're abandoning your marriage for some crop rotation fantasy?" I turned to face her. "That crop rotation fantasy paid for the down payment, paid for your spa weekends, paid for your $30 eye cream and your little oat milk lattes." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please, you think that buys my loyalty? I'm not giving up clean urban living just so you can play cowboy with dirt and tractors." "Good," I said, firing up the engine. "Stay here. Have fun with your influencers and overpriced brunch." She slammed the door before I could close it myself. Inside, she started pacing. "You're not even gonna try to work this out? You're just done." I grabbed my second duffel from the closet, the one with my laptop and field notes. "I've tried for years. You just never saw it. This job's the one thing that sees me." "You're pathetic," she snapped. "You think you're gonna be some big deal farm boy now? You'll be back." I didn't flinch. "I'm not coming back." Her tone changed, quieter, sharper. "Fine. Then I want a divorce." "I already said fair enough," I reminded her, tossing the bag over my shoulder. She took one step closer, voice rising again. "And don't think you're walking away clean. I'll get lawyers. You want to play hardball? Let's play." "Go ahead," I said, unlocking the truck. "Drain me. It'll be the last thing you ever get from me." She didn't answer, just stood there, arms crossed again, jaw tight. I pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back. 2 days later, I was on site in Idaho when the divorce papers hit my email. She moved fast, probably called that overpriced lawyer friend of hers the same night. She kept the condo, the furniture, our shared bank account. She took most of it. No argument, no back and forth. I e-signed every line, right from the Orchard office trailer, dirt still under my nails. I didn't need her stuff. I needed distance. She texted me once after the papers went through. "Guess that's that." I didn't reply. The next day, I was out walking the rows, clipboard in hand, when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I picked up without thinking. "Just so you know," she said, voice like ice, "this isn't going to end well for you." I paused. "Let the breeze blow over the mic already ended," I said, "and I'm good with it." I hung up, slid the phone into my back pocket, and walked to the far plot where the new irrigation sensors were being installed. I reached the far end of the orchard just as the crew was finishing up the last sensor install. Sun was already low, bugs starting to hum. My shirt was damp from the heat, hands still raw from checking the emitter lines earlier that afternoon. "Sensors synced and reading good moisture," said Eduardo, our best field tech. "Plot B should be on track." "Perfect," I said, tapping my tablet. "Make sure we flag any drop below 15%. I don't want another dry pocket like last week." He nodded and moved on without questions. That was the thing about this place. People didn't waste time pretending. You pulled your weight, you got respect. Simple. The company had set me up in a small bungalow just up the hill from the orchard's west edge. Nothing fancy. Beige walls, single bed, old tile in the bathroom. But it was clean, quiet. No matcha lattes or rooftop yoga videos in sight. I started every morning before 5. Soil samples, pest checks, irrigation flow, sustainability metrics. By noon, I'd already walked 5 miles and talked to 24 people. By evening, I was catching up on plant pathology reports and prepping for the next day's rotations. It was hard, and I loved it. After 2 months, I'd already saved more than I used to make in half a year. And that was after sending a check to my little brother to help with his mortgage. One night, I was out on the porch, boots up on the rail, watching the last truck roll out. The sunset lit the orchard rose like fire. That's when it hit me. I hadn't thought about her in weeks. Not once. She used to be everywhere. Her voice in the back of my head. Her perfume stuck to old shirts. Her damn skincare bottles cluttering every shelf. Now, gone. No bitterness. No ache. Just quiet. She was never the dream. She was the distraction from it. The crew picked up on it too. They saw me out in the field, sleeves rolled, hands dirty. I wasn't some clipboard clown barking orders from an office. I was one of them, and when I said something needed to get done, it got done. No questions. I walked the rows at night sometimes, just to feel the stillness. It was the first time in years I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. One morning, I was helping the new guy unload seed trays when he looked at me and said, "You always this hands-on? Only way I know how to be." I told him, tossing another flat onto the table. "You can't fix what you won't touch." He grinned. "No wonder the crew actually listens to you." I shrugged. I listened to them too, and that was it. No boardrooms, no fake smiles, no shallow small talk about wine pairings and condo remodels. Just work. Real work that mattered. That afternoon, I got a call about a test plot showing improved yield from the new compost blend. I grabbed my gear and headed down to see it for myself. I walked the test plot, took notes, snapped photos, and flagged 2 rows for resampling. By the time I got back to the bungalow, it was almost dark. I microwaved some leftover chili, kicked my boots off at the door, and pulled out my laptop to log yield data. Out of habit, I flipped open a browser tab. Didn't even mean to, really, but curiosity slipped in. I typed her name. Her profile was still public. Photos everywhere, rooftop bars, brunch mimosas stacked in 4 different colors, spa selfies, shopping bags, new shoes, new nails, new hair. Always something new, but it all looked the same. She'd posted a picture of herself in a silk robe with a caption that said, "Let go of what doesn't serve you. Evolving every day. Give me a break." It wasn't growth. It was cover. The captions were all that fake deep self-help garbage. The comments were worse, same plastic friends from before. Girls who used to side-eye me at dinner parties while they whispered about who drove what and which condo had better lighting for Instagram. Yes, queen, nail polish sparkles. Your glow-up is everything. Living your best life. I scrolled through, waiting to feel something. Anger, regret, anything. But there was nothing. Meanwhile, I was knee-deep in something real. I had morning calls with soil engineers and PhDs who respected what I brought to the table. Lunch breaks were spent checking irrigation charts or talking shop with guys who'd been growing crops since before I was born. These people didn't care where I came from. They cared what I did. A week earlier, one of the crew guys brought in his little girl to see the orchard. She was maybe 8, wearing tiny boots and overalls, asking every question under the sun. When we walked past the compost site, she wrinkled her nose and said, It stinks." Her dad laughed. "That smell's gonna feed our fruit, honey." She looked up at me and asked, "Is this your farm?" "Sort of," I said. "I help take care of it." She nodded like that made perfect sense and ran ahead. That moment stuck with me. Because yeah, I didn't have rooftop views or influencer brunches, but I had something you couldn't filter. I had sweat and soil and people who shook your hand like they meant it. She was out there chasing likes. I was planting something that would actually grow. A few days later, I passed one of her photos around the lunch table, her holding a cocktail on a beach, sunglasses crooked, fake smile way too wide. Eduardo squinted. "Who's that?" "Ex-wife." He raised an eyebrow. "Damn. She look expensive." "She was," I said, taking the photo back. "Not worth it." Everyone laughed. That night, I updated my field reports, uploaded a drone scan of the southern plots, then opened my inbox and started drafting a proposal for expansion. The soil numbers were strong. Output was up. We had the room. If I moved fast, we could double our orchard space before winter hit. I shut the laptop and grabbed my boots again. The field lights were still on. It was time to walk the north rows. The north rows were looking good, consistent growth, no signs of root stress. I marked a few low-hanging branches for pruning and made a mental note to check calcium levels in the soil. It was past midnight by the time I made it back to the bungalow. 2 days later, I got the promotion. Senior agronomist. Full oversight on 3 plots, higher pay scale, and a company truck, dark green, clean interior, brand new tires. The morning they handed me the keys, I stood in the parking lot staring at it for a long second. Not because it was fancy, but because it was mine earned. I tossed my field bag in the back seat, climbed in, and cranked the engine. Purred. About a week later, I was halfway through planning the new planting cycle when my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Same number. I picked up, expecting it to be another vendor. "Hey," a voice said. Female. Hesitant. "It's Amanda. Her sister." I paused. "Okay. I just thought you should know. She's struggling." I leaned back in my chair, still holding the clipboard. "Struggling how?" "She lost the job," she said, lowering her voice like someone might hear. "That marketing firm she worked for? Budget cuts. But also, they had issues with her showing up late. Missing meetings. That kind of thing." I didn't say anything. "She's way behind on the condo. Pre-foreclosure status. She's driving some beat-up old Nissan now. Credits maxed out. And that money from the divorce. What about it? Gone. All of it." I nodded slowly, took a sip of coffee and said, "Appreciate the call. That's all you have to say?" she asked. "I didn't make her choices. She's not doing well. She's been borrowing from mom and dad. From me. I didn't ask for an update." I cut in. "You called. You said what you needed to say. Now I gotta get back to work." "She thought you'd care." "She thought a lot of things." I hung up and dropped the phone on the desk. The last thing I was gonna do was spend another second babysitting that mess. She made her bed. Designer sheets and all. I looked back at the planting chart. I still needed to decide which rootstocks to push this cycle, Gala or Fuji. I went with Fuji. Better long-term yield. Half an hour later, I was back out in the rows, walking with Jenna, one of the new assistants. Smart, sharp, early 20s. She asked questions that showed she actually cared. "Why Fuji over Gala?" she asked. "Longer season," I said. "Better export demand. More value if we store it right." She nodded, writing it down. I liked that. People who listened, learned, moved forward. Not ones who posed, bragged, and broke down the second life got inconvenient. Back in the truck, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Sunburned nose, lines around my eyes, dirt along my jawline. I looked like someone who worked for a living, and I respected the hell out of that. The next morning, I passed by the orchard office and saw a vase of sunflowers on my desk. No note. Just flowers in a mason jar. I knew it wasn't from her. She didn't even like sunflowers. Called them trashy. I left them there and got back to my charts. Later that week, Amanda texted, "Let me know if you want to talk." I didn't. I was already 2 steps into the next cycle. I was in the break room cleaning mud off my boots when Jenna came barreling in, tablet in hand. You're in a magazine," she said, wide-eyed. I raised an eyebrow. Like People? Or Field and Tractor Weekly? She spun the screen around. American Agriculture Journal cover story, Regenerative Farming in the Modern Age. Halfway down the article was a photo of me standing next to a soil pit, arms crossed, boots filthy, sun in my eyes. There was a pull quote under it. "You don't just grow apples. You rebuild soil, culture, and value, or you get out of the way." Wes Halpern, senior agronomist, 3 Rivers Orchards. My mouth twitched. "Huh," she laughed. "Huh? That's it? You're on the front page of the biggest AG journal in the country." I said what I said. I shrugged. They printed it. Good on them. By noon, my inbox was blowing up. Old coworkers, college contacts, people I hadn't heard from in 10 years. One guy messaged me, "Didn't realize you were running the whole show out there. Huge respect." Another one said, "We thought you fell off the grid. Turns out you leveled up." My phone buzzed every few seconds with connection requests. LinkedIn, email, even Instagram. The Orchard's site traffic spiked. Company leadership forwarded the article with a little note. "Proud to have you on the team." That night, Eduardo brought beers out to the tool shed and cracked one open. "Local celebrity," he said, tapping his bottle against mine. "Don't forget the field crew when you go big time. Don't forget I still shovel compost with you." I smirked, but not everyone was thrilled. 2 days later, one of her old friends, Cassidy or Callie or something, posted a screenshot of the article to her Instagram story. She circled my face with a red heart and captioned it, "Wait, isn't this your ex?" Didn't take long after that. Amanda called again. "No hello." "She saw it," she blurted. "The article, the picture, everything. She's been Googling your job title for days." "Okay," I said, sipping my coffee. "She's confused," Amanda continued. "She didn't know it was that serious." I let the silence hang until she cracked. "She thought you were just doing field work. She didn't know you were leading it." I mean, she was shocked. "That makes 2 of us," I said, setting my mug down. "Did she also just figure out the earth is round?" Amanda sighed. "Come on. You know she regrets it. Then she can live with it. Same as I lived with her calling my career a joke." "She was wrong," she admitted. "I think she knows that now." "Well," I said, checking the time, "I've got a nitrogen runoff meeting in 5. You done?" She hesitated. "You're really not going to talk to her?" "No," I said flatly. "I'm busy doing the thing she laughed at." I ended the call and slid my phone face down on the desk. The next morning, I woke up to 5 new interview requests, AG Tech podcasts, a university panel, even a feature spot in an upcoming documentary on sustainable farming. I picked one, turned the others down. I wasn't trying to be famous. I just wanted to keep building, keep growing. She could keep scrolling. I had a field team waiting and a growing season to win. I grabbed my clipboard and headed out to the southern ridge. I was halfway through reviewing Lana's nitrate retention study when the first message came in. Thursday, 8:14 p.m. "Hope you're doing well." I didn't reply, didn't even flinch. Just locked the phone, flipped back to the soil charts and kept reading. Next night, another one. "Always knew you'd do something big. Bull." She laughed in my face when I told her about Idaho. "Play farmer. Remember?" By the weekend, she was fishing harder. Maybe we misunderstood each other. Timing's everything, right? Then came the guilt angle. "Just read about regenerative farming. Wow, it's amazing. Honestly, I'm proud of you." I closed the messages and tossed my phone onto the truck seat. She was testing the water, poking around, seeing if the door was still cracked. It wasn't, but I also didn't slam it shut. I let it sit. More messages rolled in over the next few days. Compliments, questions, little remember when lines that stank of desperation. I ignored everyone. Then Tuesday night. Would love to catch up. Coffee sometime? Maybe when you're back in town. I stared at that one for a while. An hour? That's what she asked for. I wrote back, sure, I can spare an hour. Sent. Nothing else. Then I grabbed my phone and called Lana. She answered on the second ring. Hey boss. Feel like taking a drive Friday night? She laughed. Where to? Town. Small dinner. 1 hour tops. There was a pause. This some kind of work thing? Not exactly. All right. Should I wear jeans or heels? Something clean, I said. And sharp. Lana was 28, maybe 29. She joined the team 6 months earlier, Stanford AG Science, whip smart, always the first one on the field and last one to leave. She didn't flirt. She didn't play games. She just worked hard and backed up everything she said with real results. We had good rhythm. She challenged me without showboating. We didn't talk about exes or breakups. Just data, dirt, and results. On Friday, I picked her up right at 7. She wore a dark green blouse, fitted blazer, clean boots, and that confidence only smart people with nothing to prove carry on their shoulders. Where are we going? She asked as we pulled onto the highway. Bistro Marcelin. You'll like it. Oh, fancy. We drove in silence for a while, the kind that felt easy. At 7:22 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text. Just parked. Grabbing our table now. I parked across the street from the bistro, killed the engine, and turned to Lana. You're about to meet someone who thought I'd never amount to anything. She raised an eyebrow. That the one who said Idaho was a joke? Yep. She laughed. Should I bring a shovel or a camera? Neither. Just be yourself. We crossed the street, walked through the big glass doors, and stepped into the warm noise of a packed Friday night crowd. Wine glasses clinking, jazz humming through the overheads. The maitre d' gave me a slight nod and waved us to a small table near the center. I sat with my back to the door. Lana took the seat across from me, already skimming the menu. At exactly 7:30, I heard the heels. Click, click, click. I didn't turn. Lana glanced over my shoulder, then smirked. She's here. I set the menu down. She alone. Looks like it. Footsteps stopped. There was a long pause. Then I heard the gasp. And the crash. She'd run straight into a waiter carrying a tray of beet juice cocktails. Deep red. As cold. Straight across the front of her white dress. The exact same one she wore to our engagement dinner. Half the restaurant turned to look. People whispered. Someone chuckled. I stood up slowly, wiped my napkin across my hand, and said loud enough for the room to hear, Folks, meet my ex-wife, still making grand entrances. The place erupted in laughter. Even the bartender clapped. Her face twisted shock, fury, embarrassment, all fighting for first place. She turned and stormed out, dripping beet juice and shame. I sat back down. Lana blinked. Well, that was dramatic. Could have gone worse, I said, signaling for dessert. We ordered 2 crème brûlées. Lana cracked the top of her crème brûlée with the edge of her spoon, like nothing had just exploded across the dining room. You weren't kidding, she said, keeping her eyes on the dessert. She really wore that dress? Same one she wore the night she said yes, I said. Fitting. People were still murmuring around us. Waitstaff moved fast, cleaning up the mess by the door, but the stain was going to outlast the evening. Beet juice doesn't just rinse out. The maitre d' came by and whispered, Apologies for the disturbance, Mr. Halpern. I gave him a nod. Not your fault. Can't control everyone's timing. Lana smirked. Or coordination. We finished dessert in peace. I paid the bill and left a heavy tip for the poor waiter she'd collided with. As we stepped out into the cool night air, I spotted her across the street. Hunched on a bench, arms crossed over the dark red mess now plastered to her body. Her hair was frizzed from humidity, heels kicked off beside her. She spotted us and stood up too fast, like she'd been rehearsing something. I kept walking. Wes, she called out, voice shrill and shaking. Wait. I didn't stop, but I slowed just enough for her to catch up. Lana didn't say a word, just kept step, sharp and composed. Are you kidding me? My ex barked. You humiliated me. In public. You walked into a packed restaurant wearing a white dress like we were still engaged. I said flatly. I didn't pour drinks on you. She pointed a finger at Lana. Who the hell is she? Lana stopped, turned slowly, and smiled. I'm the soil scientist helping double his orchard output while you're blowing through credit cards and pretending beet juice is the end of the world. I nearly laughed out loud. My ex blinked, face twitching. You set me up, she said, turning back to me. You planned this. The restaurant, the time. Damn right I did. I cut in. You asked for an hour. You got 5 minutes. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. My work does. She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. This isn't you. You used to be. Quiet, patient, broke. She flinched. That one landed. I supported you, she hissed. With my paycheck, I fired back. While you laughed at everything I built. I didn't know it'd go this far, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't think. No, I interrupted. You didn't. She took a step closer, her voice low now. I didn't come here to fight. I just wanted to see you again. Talk. Maybe. Maybe what? I asked. Rewind it? Pretend you didn't say you'd rather have your social life than a husband who worked in dirt. She shook her head fast. That's not fair. It's accurate. Lana pulled her keys from her purse. I'll wait at the truck. I gave her a nod, then looked back at my ex. You made your call, I said. Now you get to live with it. That's how grown-up decisions work. She blinked fast, mascara streaking from her eyes down toward the stain. You really don't care, she whispered. I paused. Not out of mercy, just to make sure she heard me clearly. No, I said. Not anymore. She wrapped her arms around herself and backed away, nearly tripping over the curb. I turned and walked to the truck. Lana was leaning against the door, arms crossed, smiling. Done? She asked. More than done. We climbed in, pulled out of the lot, and drove off. The city lights faded behind us. We got back late. I dropped Lana off with a simple, thanks for coming. And she just grinned and said, anytime you need backup. Then she hopped out, clean and composed, like she hadn't just walked through a live grenade. I didn't even make it inside before my phone lit up. Amanda. I let it ring. Next morning, she called again before 7. I answered on the third ring. What the hell did you do? She snapped. Morning to you too, I said, pouring coffee. She's devastated. Crying all night. Says you set her up. I leaned against the counter. I told her I could spare an hour. She didn't ask who else would be there. You brought a date, Wes. I brought a colleague. A brilliant one. She asked me for coffee. I gave her 5 minutes and a clear answer. Amanda exhaled hard through the phone. You humiliated her. So did she, I said. When she laughed in my face and called my career a joke, there was silence on the line. Then, she regrets that. She said I'm not interested in her regrets. I cut in. I've got too much going right to start digging through her wrongs. She's not okay, Amanda said, softer now. Neither was I. And nobody gave a damn. More silence. You really don't care if she falls apart? I took a sip of coffee. She already did. I just let her see it. Then I hung up. Didn't wait for a reply. Didn't feel guilty. I scrolled to her contact, hit block, and that was that. No more go-betweens. No more updates. No more slow drip guilt. By noon, I was back in Idaho. Clouds were low, ground still damp from last night's rain. The office smelled like coffee and soil the way I liked it. I barely had time to sit before my project lead waved me down. Expansion got green lit, he said, smiling. We're go for 20 new acres. You're heading it. I nodded once. Let's get to work. It meant more hires, bigger crews, updated equipment, and another raise. I wasn't just part of the operation anymore. I was the operation. That night, I stood out by the test plots, boots in mud, hands in my jacket pockets. The orchard lights hummed low. You could hear frogs croaking from the irrigation ditches. I breathed deep. No perfume, no tension, no drama, just cold air and real ground under my feet. She was gone. Out of my head, out of my phone, out of my life, like a storm that passed through, tore up some trees, and disappeared into the mountains. And I was still standing, with more to build. Spring rolled in heavy and wet, just how the trees liked it. I was driving between our Oregon and Washington plots, riding high in a company SUV with my name on the door and a 40-person team under my direction. I had a corner office now. Not that I sat in it much, I preferred the field. But it was there. Desk, view, nameplate, the whole deal. 12 months since the expansion. Profits were up. Soil health better than ever. Staff retention solid. I was building something real, tangible, productive. Word drifted through the grapevine that she'd moved back in with her parents. That fancy condo? Gone. Car? Repoed. Social media? Wiped. She just disappeared like a brand that didn't sell. But I didn't feel smug. I felt free. Nobody calling my ambition rural nonsense. Nobody mocking my work boots. Nobody draining my energy just to boost their image. People asked if I regretted how it ended. Not once. She underestimated me and overestimated her own worth. That's not something you fix with coffee and apologies. That's a mindset, and I wasn't in the business of saving people from their own arrogance. I chose growth, chose dirt, sweat, early mornings, and real progress. Chose to bet on myself instead of chasing some illusion of status. She chose appearances. Now she gets to sit in the mess she made while I keep moving forward. Someone asked me last week what I'd say if she reached out again. I said, nothing. That bridge didn't just burn. I torched it, poured diesel on it, watched it turn to ash without blinking. And you know what? I'm glad.